Hello everybody, welcome back. This is our new project. It's a 1980 Volkswagen Rabbit. We got it for 150 bucks from a junkyard. It wasn't a junkyard, it was some guy that had about 50 of these things sitting in his back field in Central Oregon. And we're going through trying to get fired up because I see there's not a whole lot of information on these on the internet of an actual walkthrough. So I'm gonna talk about this one real quick. Like I said, 1980. It's a 4-door. Outside's a little beat up, but the inside's honestly pretty clean. It's got a nice headliner and everything. Dash is cracked. It's pretty expected. Mileage, I think it's like around 100,000 according to this guy in there. Yeah, like 105,000. It's not too bad. It's automatic, which sucks, but if it runs, I'm happy. So when we got it, the first problem we knew about was it's missing the ignition. I'll talk about that in a second. And that's all we really knew when we got it. It rolled. The brakes feel pretty bad. I need to definitely bleed those. Right now we have nothing, but the engine was all here. We've done a little work to it, which I'll talk about. But overall, it looked pretty good. Just pretty dang dusty. Most of the trim was there, and it's a pretty cool looking car. So, talk about the first thing we found out. This is my brother. If you want to talk about the ignition real quick, how it works. No. Yeah, one door that doesn't work. It's just this passenger door. But, okay.
So I believe this one right here is going to be the starter wire. These double blacks are for all the accessories and whatnot. It also, I think, runs some parts to the coil as well. Probably some relay or something. This right here is for the coil only. And then this is your power in. So pretty much you just hook a positive 12 volts up to any of these to make whatever you want run.
This guy do anything?
I have no idea what that's for. Nobody knows what that one's for. So yeah, but to make the car actually run, you do have to connect all these three together, and then you would add the starter in to get it fired up, and then you let that one off. So it's pretty simple for these older cars, which is why they can all be hot wired so easily. Yeah,
so that's a quick hack on how to steal our car. Eventually, I would like to get an actual ignition for it, but for now, we're running like that.
But I mean, honestly, ignition isn't really gonna make a difference because somebody just cuts those wires. It's gonna be real simple anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Might as well throw some switches in there.
Okay, well, right off the bat, we realized we had a few things that were messed up. First and foremost, we realized the fuel pump was missing on this car. So that was a big one, and then we just decided, okay, let's try to crank it over. We got nothing, so starter and the fuel pump were the first things we realized were not working so well. So, popped underneath the car and immediately found out maybe one of the reasons why this car was taken to a junkyard is looks like they hit something pretty good right there. This bell housing is supposed to cover that. It's not, and it looks pretty badly damaged, but it still works. So I got up in here. This is the starter. A real pain in the ass to get out. I'm not gonna lie. This thing is up in there, and there's one bolt there. Let me try to get up in here. Another bolt on the side there. If I can get that to focus properly. And then another bolt. Oh boy. I don't know if I can get that one over there. I can get it from the top. There's a third bolt up on top of here. Man, this thing, you can kind of see it's hard to film. It's even harder to get out. There's another bolt up on top. Right there. You can barely see it in the side of your screen. That little guy in the corner there. That one's a real pain, but you can actually get to it pretty easy. If you just come around and you can stick your extension up in between. Up between here. So it wasn't terrible, but it also has this cover you gotta pull off first, and this additional brace which comes off, and then the 3 bolts that actually hold it to the front. So quite the hassle, but got that off, got it replaced. That one works fine now. And then I'll pop over to the fuel pump. Fuel pumps, that's kind of confusing because there's not a whole lot of data on like what pressure to run. But I just did some shopping and eventually settled on one from AutoZone. In the description, I think it said like 65 or 80 psi, something like that. So got it. And it seems to push plenty of power, plenty of psi to the front. Right now, it's just roughly put up in there because we're just doing a lot of testing. It's hooked to a battery because after we got that installed and we thought we had everything sorted, I figured out we had another problem, and that was that the fuel pump relay is also missing in this car. fuel pump relay, according to the manuals that I found, should be right up here in this number 3's, the third spot over. I believe this is the wiper relay. It has that weird jumper to do intermittent wiping, but this guy's missing. There's some weird solutions people have come up with, because I think that there was some sort of circuit board that would burn out after the relay, so they had a system that actually took the power to a different spot, but I haven't figured that out yet. We'll probably build our own little relay for it eventually. So after we got all that sorted, and we had fuel up to the front, we took all the lines off, flushed them out. They're all these like banjo fittings, so they're kind of easy to flush, and they actually hold their pressure pretty well. This is actually the fuel filter, and in the back there's like a pressure regulator.
No, this actually right here is a pressure regulator.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the back is then. There's something else in the back. There's a lot of stuff in this car. It's complex German engineering. So once we verified we had fuel to everything, it's the fuel distributor, which is wild. There's a few good videos on YouTube talking about that. I'm not going to try to describe it, but essentially when the air comes through, this thing gets pulled up, and it moves a little piston in here, which allows fuel to flow to all 4 of the injectors. And they're all mechanical injectors, so they just, once they hit a certain pressure, they open up. Anyway, long story short, we also replaced these because he was messing with one and broke it off. So we had to replace those, and they're these funky special type that look like this instead of the typical American style, but pretty easy to get back in there, and we picked them up from AutoZone for like $50 for a set of 4. Okay, so that leads us to where we are now, which we weren't getting any combustion. We knew we were getting fuel up here. We were pretty sure we were getting fuel to these. Car was cranking, and we checked and we knew we had spark. I said, what the hell? We pulled out the number 1 spark plug. It was completely dry, which led us to think maybe the injectors weren't working. So we pulled one of the injectors, this guy over here. These injectors are pretty weird. They pull out just by hand. Like you reach in there and tug them out. There's nothing that bolts them in. They have like the bolts together. Oh, they do have the bolts, the like actual nuts on there, but those are just to hold the hose to the actual injector. So to pull them out, here's one of them right here. The one we got out. They have this rubber like O-ring material, and it completely hardens up. This is rock hard. That's supposed to be soft, so we're gonna have to replace that in all of these. But once you get it out, there's a special tool that looks like an L shape that tugs in, that hooks underneath the nut part of it, and you put your screw and you wedge it up and it pops them out. So that's the best way to do that. This one we just managed to get out with a lot of force. So we got this guy out, and we were messing around. We pulled it out and we just tested it. What you can do to test it is you actually engage the fuel pump, and then when you have this thing off and you lift this up, it allows the fuel to flow to these. So when it's plugged in, it'll actually spray the fuel out, or it should. This one we immediately realized wasn't doing that, so we took it apart, sprayed some air through it, sprayed some PV blaster into it, and tried to clean it up. Before we did that, we also tried to do a pressure test. This is one of the things we built to do that. It's actually this thread right here is M12 by 1.5, and it's an inverse flare fitting. So it's inverted. So the male side has the cone inside of it, and the female side has the inside like that. So it's kind of weird and hard to find a fitting that would adapt to our fuel pressure tester that we had. So we actually just took an M12 by 5 bolt, drilled a hole down the center of it, and then kind of ground it out to a sort flange, a small flange, so that the flare would actually work. So I'll show you how we test that, and we can show you what kind of fuel pressure we had.
We just do this hand tight because I cut the head of the bolt off so we can no longer tighten it. So we just kind of get it finger tight, which apparently appears to be pretty good. I also don't want to damage that flare fitting, so we don't use any wrenches on it because that could damage it with our weird home-built bolt thing here. So I'm going to go turn the fuel pressure on, and you guys can watch the gauge.
Okay, I'm going to put some safety glasses on. It's a little dangerous.
Let me turn that on for you.
Okay. So, this thing's probably going to shoot fuel everywhere again, but we see what kind of pressure. So, go and pressurize it. Here's the fuel pump, and then once you hear the fuel pump prime, you pull up on this, and it'll allow pressure to flow to this guy. So, okay, that's a little loose on this one. This time. Our earlier test showed us that we had, what did I say, like 75 psi. It looks like this one wasn't quite as tight as before. I'll try to get a little tighter, maybe. Okay, my eyes. Like, fine. So, I mean, when we did it earlier, with like we tightened a little bit more. We got close to 75 psi, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
so based on the book, we have the famous book. Where did the book go? Oh, okay. Well, I did buy the Bentley manual to read a little more. The Bentley manual is pretty helpful, but it covers such a wide range of stuff, and there's so many different years that are the same. It's a lot of testing, but 75 psi should be plenty because the Bentley says that the injector should open at just like I think 29 to 38. I'm not sure that's actually correct based on this model, but they should open at least at 60 based on when we were putting air through them. We were shooting air through them. They opened up. You could hear them open up at about 60 psi. So now we'll show you. We're putting the injector back in. This injector we cleaned out with PB blaster and air and just like generally kind of shaking it around.
Yeah, and actually to get these to open first too, I actually used a little tiny super sharp tool, just kind of pop the very front edge of it open.
You can kind of see if you do it very gently because you don't want to damage that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if that was good for it, but we did it anyway. So.
Focus on you. There's like a little. Oh man, well, there's a little lid in there which you can move around. Right. That kind of freed it up. But now we'll go ahead and show you the spray pattern. Hopefully, if I don't die. You can see, cleaned up. It's not beautiful for sure.
Spray pattern don't like
but go ahead and pressurize it again. Let me get a full pressurizer. When it gets like fully. Oh. Okay, here's the injector test, a little bit tighter. Go ahead and pressurize it and then... Oh, no. Okay, take 4. Yeah, look at that. Pretty nice spray pattern. Okay.
Where's that?
Awesome. So you can see there, it's a little bit clean, got that working fine. Okay, so that's pretty much it for right now, I think. You can see we got the fuel injector working, so the next plan is to get that special tool and actually pull all 4 injectors out. We'll do the same thing, clean it up and make sure they're all working and have a pretty good spray pattern.
And then we're also going to have to order those stupid little rubber things, which are like $7 a pop, so that's going to get at least not super expensive, but at least we don't have to replace the injectors, which were like $35 a pop. Yeah. So that is nice we were able to get these things working. Hopefully we can get the rest of them to work as well.
Yeah, the injectors are about $38 a pop, but that's the next step. And maybe this car will actually start firing after that. It's pretty straightforward. We have spark, definitely got air, and we think that it's actuating properly. Now we know that the fuel's gonna be spraying out. So that's about it. If you have any more questions or want like a picture from the Bentley manual, I can definitely help people out. So let us know what you guys want us to look at on this thing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Just wanted to show you guys real quick how the starter put back together. So I got the 3 bolts in the front already done, and then there's this cool cover that goes over and protects the actual solenoid up there. And there's also this brace right here, which goes up and attaches to that. Attaches that bolt up there. And it goes in. So underneath that cover. Slips over those 2 bolts and sits like that. So we put this bad boy together and it'll be done. Hopefully I won't have to replace this for a while.